Gemini, welcome back. I hope you're doing well wherever this reading finds you. Before we dive in, thank you for being here. Thank you for your time, your energy, and for sharing this space with me. As always, this is a general reading, so not every message will be for everyone, and that's perfectly okay. Gemini, right away, I'm picking up on someone who has been spending a lot more time thinking about you than they would probably admit. It's almost like they keep trying to move on to other things, but their mind keeps circling back to the same person, the same memories, the same unfinished thoughts. Okay, let's see where this energy wants to take us today. The first thing that catches my attention is the Six of Cups, and honestly, it feels like someone keeps revisiting moments connected to you. Not because they're trying to. It almost feels involuntary, like they'll be going about their day, handling responsibilities, focusing on work, talking to other people, and then suddenly something reminds them of you. A phrase, a song, a certain time of day, even a random conversation that somehow brings your energy right back into the room. And the strange thing is, the more they try to understand why this keeps happening, the stronger it becomes. This person has been analyzing everything, every interaction, every look, every message, every conversation. They're replaying things over and over in their head as if they're searching for a missing piece that somehow got lost along the way. Honestly, Gemini, this feels like somebody who keeps telling themselves they should have figured this out by now. They should have moved past it. They should have reached a conclusion. But they haven't. And that's what frustrates them. Because every time they think they've finally found an answer, another question appears. Every time they convince themselves they're done thinking about you, another memory shows up. And then I see judgment. Wow, this card feels loud, not in an aggressive way. More like a truth that keeps knocking on a locked door. A realization that refuses to stay buried. It's almost as if this person has been trying to avoid a certain conclusion for a very long time. They've looked at the situation from every angle possible. They've questioned themselves, questioned you, questioned what happened, questioned what didn't happen. Yet somehow they always end up standing in the exact same place emotionally, looking back towards you, thinking about you, wondering about you. You know what feels interesting here? I don't actually feel like this person has all the answers. I think that's part of the problem. They've been trying to solve something that isn't entirely logical. And for someone who wants certainty, that's incredibly uncomfortable. Because what keeps returning isn't just a thought. It's a feeling they can't fully explain. A feeling that doesn't disappear simply because they decide it should. And then we have the Two of Swords sitting here, and the energy becomes very quiet, very still. Like someone standing in the middle of a road long after everyone else has gone home. I keep hearing, what if I say something? Followed immediately by, what if I don't? Back and forth, back and forth. This person has been living inside that question. There are words they want to say, things they wish they could ask, conversations they've imagined having with you 100 different ways. Honestly, some of these conversations have happened so many times in their imagination that they almost feel real. They've pictured your reaction. They've pictured your voice. They've pictured how the conversation begins. And they've definitely pictured how it ends. But imagination is safe. Reality is different. Reality requires vulnerability. Reality requires risking an answer they may not be prepared to hear. So instead, they sit with it, thinking, replaying, analyzing, watching the same emotional movie over and over again. And Gemini, I have to say something. I don't feel like this person is only remembering what happened. I think they're also haunted by what never happened. The things they didn't say, the opportunities they let pass, the moments where they could have spoken honestly, but chose silence instead. Those moments feel very present around them, almost heavier than the memories themselves. And then the star appears. The energy changes immediately. There's something about the way this person sees you now. It's different than before. It's almost like distance has given them perspective. The farther they've moved from certain moments, the clearer those moments have become. I keep feeling this sense of admiration, not just attraction, not just curiosity. Admiration. They notice things about you that they may have overlooked before. The way you handle challenges. The way you keep moving forward. The way you remain yourself even when life asks you to become something else. It's like they're seeing layers now that they didn't fully appreciate in the past. And honestly, Gemini, that's making everything more complicated for them. Because the more clearly they see you, the harder it becomes to dismiss what they're feeling. The more they recognize your value, the more difficult it becomes to convince themselves that this connection doesn't matter. I keep seeing someone checking their phone, putting it down, picking it back up, starting a message, deleting it, thinking about reaching out, talking themselves out of it, then circling right back to the idea again. And the strange thing is, this cycle doesn't seem to be ending. If anything, it feels like it's becoming stronger. Because underneath all the analysis, underneath all the hesitation, underneath all the questions they keep asking themselves, there is one truth that keeps resurfacing no matter how many times they try to push it away. You're still on their mind, and for some reason, no amount of logic has been able to change that. And honestly, Gemini, the more I sit with this energy, the more I realize this isn't someone who has stopped paying attention. If anything, they've become more aware of you than ever before. The Page of Swords keeps catching my eye, and there's something almost restless about it. Not chaotic, not intrusive, just curious. Curious. It's like this person keeps finding themselves drawn back toward your energy without fully understanding why. You could post something simple online, a photo, a comment, a random thought, something that takes you 30 seconds to share, and somehow they're sitting there thinking about it for hours. I don't know why that feels so specific, but it does. Because what they're paying attention to isn't always what everyone else notices. They're watching the details, the way you express yourself, the way your mind works, the way you approach life, even the way you handle situations that most people would complain about. You know, Gemini, this feels like somebody who expected to figure you out quickly, and instead, every answer led to another question. Every layer they uncovered revealed another layer underneath. It's almost funny because I keep hearing them tell themselves, okay, I understand them now. And 5 minutes later, they're right back to wondering about you again. There's something about your individuality that keeps pulling them in. Not because you're trying to impress anyone. Actually, I think that's part of what fascinates them. You don't seem overly concerned with performing for approval. You don't seem interested in becoming a copy of everyone else. You have your own rhythm, your own opinions, your own way of seeing the world. And honestly, that's becoming very difficult for this person to ignore. The Queen of Swords appears here, and wow, the energy shifts immediately. Because when this person thinks about you, they don't just see someone attractive. They don't just see chemistry. They don't just see potential. They see someone they respect. And for them, that's a very big deal. I keep feeling like this person admires the way you communicate, even if you don't always realize it. There's something about your honesty, your intelligence, your ability to say exactly what you mean without hiding behind 10 layers of confusion. Sometimes they replay conversations you've had together simply because they keep discovering new meaning inside things you said months ago. And the strange thing is, those conversations sound different to them now. It's almost like certain words have grown louder with time. Certain moments have become more significant. I keep seeing somebody smiling unexpectedly while thinking about something you said. Not because it was romantic, not because it was dramatic, because it was authentic, and authenticity feels incredibly rare to them. Honestly, Gemini, this person may have met plenty of people, talked to plenty of people, connected with plenty of people. Yet your energy keeps standing apart from the crowd. The star shows up again. And I have to be honest, the admiration here feels stronger than this person wants to admit. There are moments when they look at your life and genuinely feel inspired. Not in a way that makes them feel small, more in a way that makes them want to become better themselves. It's like they see you continuing forward, growing, learning, building, and instead of losing interest, they become even more intrigued. Because from their perspective, you're not standing still, you're evolving. And every time they think they've finally caught up with who you are, another version of you appears. A stronger version, a wiser version, a more confident version. I keep getting the image of somebody checking on you from a distance and quietly realizing that you've become even more impressive than they remembered. And that's creating a very interesting problem for them. Because admiration is one thing. Approaching you is another. Strength sits here, and the energy becomes very human, very vulnerable. Because beneath all this observation, all this curiosity, all this fascination, there is fear. Fear of getting it wrong. Fear of saying the wrong thing. Fear of discovering that too much time has passed. I keep hearing somebody rehearsing conversations, not because they want to manipulate the outcome, because they genuinely care about the outcome. There's a difference. This feels like someone who wants to approach carefully because what they feel matters to them. And the more important something becomes, the harder it is to take the first step. You know what's interesting? I don't feel like they're intimidated by your success. I think they're intimidated by your clarity. There's something about you that feels very certain to them. Even if you don't always feel certain inside yourself, the image they have of you is someone who knows who they are, someone who doesn't need constant validation, someone who can walk away from situations that no longer align with their values. And honestly, that makes them nervous because they know you won't accept confusion forever. They know you won't wait indefinitely for somebody to make up their mind. And that's forcing them to confront questions they've been avoiding. Questions about courage, questions about timing, questions about what they truly want. The more I sit with this energy, the more I feel this person standing on the edge of something emotionally significant. Not acting yet, not speaking yet, but definitely feeling the weight of what remains unsaid, because every observation has led them here. Every moment of watching from a distance, every conversation replayed in their mind, every attempt to understand you, every attempt to understand themselves. It's all bringing them closer to a realization they can no longer push aside. And I keep seeing them pause over a message that hasn't been sent, reading it, changing it, deleting it, writing it again. Their finger hovering over the screen for a second longer than necessary. Because for the first time, the possibility of reaching out feels a little less frightening than the possibility of remaining silent. Something feels different here, Gemini. Not louder, not clearer, just different. It's almost like a curtain is beginning to move, and someone is finally getting a glimpse of what has been standing behind it this entire time. The Seven of Swords appears, and immediately I get this feeling that not every opinion this person carried about you originally belonged to them. That's the strange part, because when I look at their energy, I don't see someone who intentionally wanted to misunderstand you. I see someone who trusted the wrong voices, someone who allowed certain narratives to settle into their mind before they had enough personal experience to know better. And honestly, I think they're beginning to realize that. There was an influence here, maybe subtle, maybe persistent, maybe coming from a friend, a family member, a social circle, or simply somebody who always seemed to have an opinion about everything. You know the type. The person who somehow always knows what's going on. The person who always has a story, always has an explanation, always has a warning. And for a while, your person listened. Not because they were foolish, not because they were weak, because they thought they were protecting themselves, because they believed they were gathering information, because they convinced themselves that caution was wisdom. But something about that information never fully settled in their spirit. The moon is sitting here, and the atmosphere becomes almost surreal. I keep seeing somebody trying to make sense of conflicting realities. What they were told versus what they observed, what they expected versus what they experienced. And the longer this person watched from a distance, the harder it became to make those two versions match. That's where the discomfort started. Because people can ignore a feeling for a little while. They can ignore a question for a little while. But eventually the contradictions become impossible to overlook. I keep seeing them have these tiny moments of realization. Not dramatic revelations, small ones. The kind that sneak up on you unexpectedly. Somebody says something negative about Gemini, and instead of agreeing automatically, they hesitate. A story gets repeated, and suddenly they find themselves questioning it. A judgment gets passed around, and for the first time, they wonder whether it's actually true. Those moments matter, because every time that happened, another crack appeared in the narrative they had been carrying. Honestly, Gemini, I think this person is embarrassed by some of their own assumptions. Not because they intended harm, because they're beginning to understand how incomplete the picture really was. The devil appears here, and wow, this feels less about you and more about whoever was creating the confusion. Because I'm getting an energy that wanted control. An energy that seemed unusually invested in how other people viewed you. Which is strange when you think about it. Why spend so much energy monitoring someone else's life? Why care so much? Why keep inserting yourself into a story that doesn't belong to you? I keep hearing this person ask themselves those exact questions, and the answers they're finding aren't very comfortable. Because the deeper they look, the more they begin noticing motivations that weren't obvious before. Jealousy, possessiveness, competition, resentment. Maybe not all at once, maybe not consciously, but definitely present. And the interesting thing is, Gemini, I don't feel like your person is angry. I think they're disappointed. There's a difference. Anger can be loud. Disappointment is quiet. Disappointment sits with you. Disappointment makes you rethink things. And this person has been rethinking a lot, especially the moments when they ignored their own instincts. Because here's what keeps standing out to me. Their intuition was speaking the entire time. Softly, consistently, patiently. But other voices were louder. And those louder voices created enough noise to pull them away from what they were genuinely feeling. I keep seeing somebody looking back over old situations and noticing details they missed before. Details that suddenly seem important. Details that change everything. A comment that didn't make sense. A reaction that felt excessive. A warning that seemed strangely personal. It's like they're revisiting old memories with completely different eyes. And every time they do, another piece falls into place. Justice appears, and the energy shifts again. Something becomes very clear here. Truth has a strange way of surviving. People can delay it. People can distort it. People can cover it with assumptions and opinions and gossip. But eventually, the truth starts finding its way back to the surface. That's exactly what this feels like. Not revenge, not punishment, just clarity. Pure clarity. The kind that arrives after a long period of confusion. And honestly, Gemini, your person is beginning to see you through their own eyes instead of someone else's. For the first time, they're separating direct experience from secondhand information. For the first time, they're asking themselves what they actually believe. Not what they've been told to believe, what they genuinely believe. And that's creating a very powerful shift. Because once somebody starts thinking for themselves, it's difficult to go back. I keep feeling them pull away from certain influences, certain conversations, certain people, not dramatically, not with confrontation, just quietly. A little more distance here, a little less trust there, a little more observation, a little less assumption. And the more they do that, the more one uncomfortable realization keeps following them. The version of Gemini they were warned about doesn't seem to be the Gemini they're actually seeing. And the moment that realization fully settles into their heart, a much bigger question suddenly appears in front of them. If they were wrong about you, what else have they been wrong about? A quiet shift is happening here, Gemini. Not the kind of shift everyone notices right away. Not the dramatic kind that announces itself when it arrives. This feels more like somebody slowly waking up after a very long dream and realizing that certain things aren't what they thought they were. The Hermit appears, and honestly, this person feels different than they did before. Much quieter, much more reflective. They're spending more time alone with their thoughts lately. Not because they want to isolate themselves, because they're trying to understand themselves. There's a difference. I keep seeing somebody pulling back from outside opinions, pulling back from distractions, pulling back from all the noise that used to influence their decisions. And for the first time in a long time, they're sitting with their own thoughts without anyone else speaking over them. That's where things start becoming interesting. Because when the room gets quiet enough, certain truths become impossible to ignore. You know what keeps standing out to me? This person is beginning to realize how much of their perception was built on assumptions. Not facts, assumptions. And the more they reflect, the more uncomfortable that realization becomes. Because every memory they're revisiting looks different now. Every interaction with you seems different now. Every conversation feels different now. It's almost like they've been reading the same book for months and suddenly discovered several missing chapters. And those missing chapters change everything. I keep hearing them think, maybe I didn't really know them at all. Not in a negative way, in a humbling way. Because they're realizing that Gemini is far more layered than they originally understood, far more complex, far more genuine, far more human. Temperance appears beside the Hermit, and the energy softens. Something inside this person is beginning to settle. For a while, there was a lot of internal conflict, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of tension between what they felt and what they believed they should feel. But that tension is slowly dissolving. It's almost as if two different versions of reality are finally beginning to merge together. The version they created in their head, and the version they've slowly discovered through observation. And honestly, the real version is winning. I keep seeing them watch you from a completely different perspective. Not looking for flaws, not looking for confirmation of old stories, not looking for reasons to stay distant, just observing, just noticing, just allowing themselves to see you as you are. And what they keep finding surprises them. They notice your resilience. They notice your consistency. They notice the way you continue moving forward even when nobody is cheering you on. The way you carry yourself. The way you interact with people. The way you handle disappointment without turning bitter. These are things they didn't fully appreciate before, and every discovery seems to pull them a little closer emotionally, because this isn't fantasy anymore. This isn't projection. This isn't somebody else's opinion. This is personal experience, and personal experience is becoming much harder for them to deny. Death appears here, and wow, something significant is ending, not between the two of you, inside of them. An old perception, an old story, an old belief. I keep feeling this person let go of a version of reality that no longer makes sense. At first, they resisted it. People usually do. It's uncomfortable admitting that we've misunderstood something important. It's uncomfortable admitting that our assumptions were incomplete. But they're reaching a point where holding on to the old narrative requires more effort than letting it go. And that's a powerful moment, because once somebody reaches that point, change happens quickly. I keep seeing them catch themselves defending you in conversations where they would have remained silent before, not aggressively, not dramatically, just naturally, almost instinctively. Somebody says something about Gemini, and instead of accepting it, they pause, they question it, they challenge it. Not because they're trying to start conflict, because it doesn't align with what they've personally seen anymore. That's a very different energy, because this person is no longer borrowing somebody else's perspective, they're forming their own. And honestly, Gemini, I think that's making them feel stronger, more grounded, more certain, not completely certain, but more certain than they've been in a very long time. The world appears, and something begins coming full circle, not in the sense of an ending, more in the sense of understanding. Pieces that once felt disconnected are suddenly fitting together. I keep getting the image of somebody standing back and looking at the entire picture instead of isolated moments. And when they do that, they realize something important. The version of you they were told about, the version of you they worried about, the version of you they kept questioning, doesn't match the person they've actually come to know. And that realization carries emotional weight. Because once they fully accept that, another truth immediately follows behind it. If Gemini isn't who they thought they were, maybe this connection isn't what they thought it was either. That thought keeps returning, quietly, persistently, almost every day. Because what began as curiosity has become something deeper. What began as observation has become genuine understanding, and understanding creates responsibility. That's the uncomfortable part. Because once you truly see someone, it's much harder to pretend you don't care. I keep seeing them reach moments throughout the day where your name crosses their mind unexpectedly. Not with confusion anymore, not with doubt, with clarity. And clarity is creating movement, slow movement, careful movement, but movement nonetheless. They're becoming increasingly aware that distance isn't solving anything. Silence isn't answering anything. Avoidance isn't changing anything. The questions are still there. The feelings are still there. The connection is still there. And for the first time, instead of wondering whether they should trust what they're feeling, they're beginning to wonder what might happen if they finally do. A moment arrives when thinking is no longer enough. That's what this energy feels like, Gemini. Not impulsive, not rushed, just exhausted from carrying the same words around for too long. The Ace of Swords lands on the table, and immediately I get the sense that somebody is reaching a threshold within themselves. A point where silence has become heavier than honesty. Because here's the thing. For a long time, this person believed they could simply live with the uncertainty, live with the questions, live with the possibility that things would remain unfinished. But the more they tried to accept that outcome, the more uncomfortable it became. It's almost like they've been carrying a conversation inside their chest that never actually happened. And every day that passes, it grows louder. I keep seeing somebody alone with their thoughts late in the evening. The television is on, music is playing, people are talking around them. Yet their attention keeps drifting somewhere else entirely. Back toward Gemini. Back toward the things they never said. Back toward the questions they've been avoiding. And honestly, it doesn't feel dramatic anymore. It feels simple. Very simple. They miss talking to you. They miss your perspective. They miss the feeling of connection that existed whenever the two of you occupied the same space. And the strange thing is, Gemini, this person isn't romanticizing you. That's not what I'm seeing. They're seeing you clearly now. Strengths, flaws, complexities, humanity, all of it. And despite seeing all of that, they're still here, still thinking, still feeling, still wondering. That's why the energy feels different. Because fantasy usually disappears when reality arrives. This connection didn't. The Ace of Cups appears, and wow, something softens immediately. The walls feel lower, the defenses feel weaker, the pride feels quieter. I keep getting this feeling that your person has spent a long time trying to appear unaffected, trying to appear logical, trying to convince themselves they were completely fine, and maybe for a while they even believed it. But emotions have a way of resurfacing when they're genuine, especially the ones we never fully process, especially the ones we never fully express. This person has so much they want to tell you, not rehearsed speeches, not dramatic declarations, real things, honest things, human things. The kind of things people say when they're tired of pretending. I keep hearing fragments. I should have said something. I wish I had handled that differently. I think about you more than you know. Very simple, very vulnerable, very real. And vulnerability is exactly what makes this so difficult for them. Because honesty creates exposure. The moment they speak, they lose the protection that silence once provided. They lose the ability to hide behind uncertainty. They lose the ability to pretend they don't care. That's why this decision feels so important. It's not just about communication. It's about accountability. It's about showing up emotionally, The Eight of Wands suddenly rushes in, and the energy changes pace. Something begins moving, not necessarily externally yet, internally. Momentum, determination, readiness. I keep feeling somebody becoming less interested in waiting for the perfect moment. Because perfection has become the enemy. Every time they waited for ideal circumstances, nothing happened. Every time they waited for certainty, more time passed. Every time they convinced themselves there would be another opportunity, the distance remained. And they're beginning to understand that. You know, Gemini, there are moments when life quietly asks us a question. How much longer are you willing to remain exactly where you are? That's the question surrounding this person right now, and they don't seem satisfied with their old answer anymore. I keep seeing drafts of messages, conversations imagined during long drives, thoughts repeated while staring out windows. A growing awareness that action and fear can exist at the same time, because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving despite it, and that's exactly where this person seems to be standing. Two of Cups appears, and the atmosphere becomes deeply personal, because what they're focused on isn't simply communication. It's connection, real connection, mutual understanding. The chance to finally interact without interference, without assumptions, without somebody else's narrative shaping the experience. Just two people, one conversation, one honest exchange. That's what keeps pulling them forward. The possibility of finally seeing what exists when everything else is removed. I keep feeling them imagine your reaction. Not because they're trying to control it, because it matters to them. They care what you think. They care how you feel. They care whether the bridge between you still exists. And that's what makes this so vulnerable, because they know there's no guarantee, no script, no certainty, only truth, only honesty, only whatever happens when they finally stop hiding behind hesitation. Strength appears again, and this time it feels different, less defensive, more determined. The fear hasn't disappeared. If anything, they are fully aware of it. But something else has become stronger. The desire to know. The desire to understand. The desire to stop carrying unfinished emotions into every new day. I keep seeing somebody holding their phone, reading your name, pausing, breathing, thinking. Not because they don't know what they want, because they finally do, and that realization changes everything. The uncertainty that once kept them frozen is slowly being replaced by something far more powerful. A willingness to risk discomfort in exchange for truth. A willingness to risk vulnerability in exchange for connection. A willingness to discover what happens when they finally allow their actions to match what their heart has been trying to tell them all along. Because somewhere between all the reflection, all the observation, all the misunderstandings that fell away, and all the truths that surfaced, this person arrived at a realization they can no longer ignore. Reaching out no longer feels like the biggest risk. Walking away without ever saying what they truly feel does. All right, Gemini, that's where I'm going to leave this one. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your time with me. It truly means more than you know. Honestly, this feels like a story that has been quietly unfolding beneath the surface for a long time. Not everything happens all at once, and not every truth arrives the moment we want it to. But there does come a point when the heart gets tired of carrying what the mouth refuses to say. Whatever part of this reading resonated with you, hold on to what feels right and leave the rest behind. Thank you again for your beautiful energy, your support, and your presence here. Take good care of yourself, Gemini. I'll see you in the next reading. Bye, everyone.